What is the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of a panda? I'm not really a mind reader, but I'm assuming it's something along the lines like, oh, pandas are cool. They're cute. They can do kung fu, which is awesome. But is that all there is to it? Are they all style, no substance? Do they have nothing beneficial to do? Or anything at all? And yes, that's actually true. Pandas are fundamentally useless. They have a minimal impact on the ecosystem, and they have a bamboo-centric only diet, which means they have no impact on the food web, and they're a very high maintenance animals, requiring a lot of resources spent in order to maintain or conserve them, which could be used better spent on other resources that really do need them. Let's start off about their minimal impact on the ecosystem. Pandas are a low population density animals, and they don't really interact with any other animals compared to very social or predatory animals that are actively interacting with other animals in the ecosystem. Since pandas have very limited interaction with other species, they're not really active, they don't really have an influence in other species because they don't interact with it at all. And since pandas have a very solitary nature, they're not really social compared to other animals. They don't really play a role in the ecosystem at all because they barely interact with that ecosystem in the first place. And I already said this. Let's go back to that one point that I made about pandas being low population density. It's because according to From Young People's Trust for the Environment, female pandas are only fertile for 2 or 3 days a year, which is a very narrow time for pandas to reproduce for their population. And since even if they are successful reproducing, panda cubs don't really have a high chance of surviving in the first year that they're born. And even if they have, since they're very low populated and they're not really affecting the ecosystem, they don't really have any effect on the ecosystem. Period. And that's also because they're very bamboo-centric only diet, which is another reason why they have a very minimal impact on the ecosystem. And I'm not exaggerating here when they're saying that they only eat bamboos. It's actually true. According to a Worldwide Fund for Nature in the UK, a panda's diet is 99% vegetarian, which mostly includes bamboo, roots, stems, shoots, and leaves. Since their only diet consists of only eating bamboos, they don't really have a role in the food web because of their low interactions with other plants and seeds. So they don't really have any influence on the food web in that matter. And since compared to other herbivores, which has seed disparity and promotes wildlife biodiversity, pandas don't really promote that at all, and they have a very low seed disparity compared to other herbivores in the environment that are actively trying to engage with that system. And since pandas really have any impact on the ecosystem, people still want to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars in order to maintain or conserve them. And pandas are often require a lot of human intervention in order to maintain or survive. Pandas can't really survive on their own. So I think that really questions about this species and if they're really like a self-sustaining species, because they can't really sustain themselves. And pandas are often used as a symbol for conservation efforts for animals, but they're not really an animal that are worth conserving. I think animals that are maybe less charming and charismatic don't really get the same love compared to pandas. But they're animals that are needing for more conservation efforts and more resources spent on pandas, even if they are less charismatic or charming compared to the other animals. And pandas also require a lot of money and resources spent in order to conserve them. From eco business, America's zoos typically pay the Chinese government $1 million manually for a single panda. $1 million for a single panda. And well, I guess it's subjected to negotiation, but that's just like where around the price range is at. But panda cubs are also just only 600,000. 600,000 for a panda cub. That's like a compared to adult panda and a kid panda, that's like a 400,000 price difference. And that's still generally a lot. So, and since pandas are really worth conserving if they really cost as much money and they don't really provide anything beneficial or useful, even with their low impact. And and that includes, other expenses. It's not just like they have to take care of the panda in order to buy them. That also requires like like their medical, the food, their diet, the environment that they're put in. It requires a lot of money in order just to maintain and conserve them. And yeah, so let's reflect on this. Since pandas are cute, they're no doubt about it. They're really charming, cute, and charismatic animals. But that's all there is to it. They have no, they have a very minimal impact because of their solitary nature, limited interactions with other animals, and they have a very bamboo-centric diet, so they don't even interact with that part, with the food web. And they're very high mate incidence just for an animal that does literally nothing, and they're not even viable for self-sustaining. They're not viable animals at all. So even if there are animals that are not as charming or charismatic, I think there are other animals that need more conservation efforts and more resources spent on them in order to provide for them. Thank you for listening to this presentation.